My name is Margaret Atwood, not the author, though I've often joked about it when making dinner party small talk. I'm just Margaret from Queens, 60 years old, wife, mother, grandmother, and until recently, someone who'd spent a lifetime putting other people first. If you'd asked anyone around me a year ago what defined me, they'd probably say I was John's wife or Melissa and Henry's mom, maybe Grandma Maggie if they were feeling warm. But that was it. No one would say business owner, entrepreneur, risk taker, and to be honest, I wouldn't have either. Not until everything changed. John and I had been married for 38 years. He worked as a civil engineer, practical, tidy, detail-oriented. I worked as a school librarian for over 2 decades, then retired early to make room for the younger generation. His words, not mine. I spent the next 15 years supporting his career, then helping raise our grandkids when they came along. I baked. I volunteered. I hosted family dinners every Sunday like clockwork. My life was full in the way that everyone else found satisfying for me. But inside, it felt like waiting for something to finally be mine. The idea came to me during the pandemic of all things. I was baking sourdough bread, like half the world, and ended up revisiting some of my grandmother's old recipes: cinnamon walnut bread, honey oat loaves, apricot challah. I posted a photo of the braided challah on my Facebook. Someone commented, "I'd pay for that." Another wrote, "You should sell these, Margaret." I laughed at first, but the idea stuck. A few weeks later, I bought brown craft boxes, printed labels, and dropped off a few loaves to my daughter's neighbors, just to see. Word spread. I began getting little handwritten notes. "Can I order for next week?" And, "Your bread made my mother cry," in the best way. One night after I'd come home from another full day of mixing, kneading, and packing, I mentioned the idea at dinner. "I think I want to try selling bread properly," I said. "Like a small bakery business. Nothing too big, just local deliveries for now." John didn't look up from his newspaper. "That's not realistic." I blinked. "Why not?" "You're 60, Maggie. Do you really want to run around delivering bread? You've had your time to work." "My time." He sighed, folding the page over. "It's not a good idea. Too much risk. Too late in the game. You'll burn out." I was quiet. He added, "You don't even know the first thing about running a business." "I could learn." He smiled, the kind of condescending smile I used to think was harmless. "Let's be practical, honey. Focus on the grandkids. This bread thing, it's a hobby, not a career." I nodded, but something inside me snapped. That night, as I packed leftover loaves into Ziplocs, I stared at my hands. Wrinkled, veined, flour-dusted, strong, capable. These hands had raised children, stacked books, fed families, buried loved ones. They could run a damn business. And they would. I didn't tell John right away. I started small. I created a name, Margaret's Table, and used Canva to design a simple logo. I built a website using a free template, learned how to take photos with natural light, and created a social media page. My daughter helped me understand Instagram Reels. My grandson helped me set up a Venmo business account. The first week I officially launched, I sold 12 loaves. By week 3, I had recurring customers. I rented a small commercial kitchen 2 nights a week in Astoria and hired a high schooler named Nina to help me box and label. I woke up early, did deliveries before sunrise, and baked late into the night. John barely noticed. He assumed I was just staying busy. One morning, as I was cleaning a mixing bowl, he came in and asked, "What are you doing with all that flour these days? Our grocery bills doubled." I looked at him. "I've started the business." He frowned. "What business?" "The bread. Margaret's Table. I've been delivering for 3 months. We hit 50 orders last week." His face fell. "You went ahead with it?" "I did. Without discussing it with me." "I tried. You said no." He stared at me like I was someone new. And in that moment I realized I was. The distance grew quickly after that. He didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't stop me. He just stepped back, watched, judged, occasionally dropped comments like, "You're pushing too hard. You'll regret wasting all this energy." What happens when people lose interest? But they didn't. In fact, they kept coming. I received an email from a local boutique grocer in Brooklyn, Millstone Market. They'd seen my products on Instagram and wanted to do a trial run with a few items in their shop. I delivered a sample crate, honey wheat, sunflower rye, and a new rosemary olive oil roll. 2 weeks later, I was invited to supply them weekly. My logo was on a chalkboard sign, "New from Margaret's Table, slow rise, fresh baked." I cried in the car after I saw it. Then I called Ella. Ella is my best friend, has been since the 3rd grade when she punched a boy for mocking my glasses. She's also the only person I told everything to from the start. "John thinks I've lost my mind," I said on the phone. "He's just afraid you found it," she replied, "and that it doesn't revolve around him anymore." We laughed, but it stung, because it was true. My whole life had been built around him, his preferences, his timelines, his opinions. Starting this business wasn't just about bread, it was about carving out something that was mine, for once. The real turning point came on my 61st birthday. Ella surprised me by booking a pop-up booth at a weekend food festival in Prospect Park. She printed a banner, wore one of my branded aprons, and dragged me out of bed at 6 a.m. to set up. At first, I was terrified. Crowds, direct sales, branding. But the moment I saw people lining up, pointing at my pastries, asking questions about the ingredients, my fear melted. That day, I sold out of everything by 3 p.m. I gave out over 100 business cards, received 2 more vendor invitations, and got approached by a local food magazine editor who asked if I'd consider being featured. Ella and I closed the booth as the sun began to fall across the trees. "You did it," she said, hugging me. "We did it," I whispered. But even in that joy, I knew something had to change. John still hadn't seen the business for what it was. Not a hobby, not a phase, but a piece of me that had been buried under decades of service. It was time he did. That night, I sat across from him at dinner, the table quiet. "I have something to say," I began. He didn't look up. "I love you, John. I always have. But I need you to hear this." He looked at me now. "This business, it's real. It's growing. It's not taking away from the family, it's giving me back to myself, and I won't stop." He stared at me, said nothing. Then, "Do you even want to be a wife anymore?" I flinched. "That's not fair," I said. He shrugged. "You've changed." "Yes," I said, "and you haven't." The silence between us was thicker than soup. And I knew, in that moment, the next chapter of my life wouldn't be written beside him. That night after dinner, John didn't sleep in our bed. I heard him in the guest room, moving blankets and sighing through walls like his disappointment should echo through drywall and guilt me into submission. But I didn't chase after him. I didn't apologize for growing. I just lay in bed, hands on my stomach, feeling the rise and fall of breath, mine steady and unapologetic. In the morning, we said nothing. He read the paper in silence. I took my coffee to go. I delivered 16 orders that day, met with a potential wholesale client near Williamsburg, and received an invitation to join a local food incubator program for women-led startups. My face flushed when I read the email. I'd applied weeks ago and convinced myself I'd been overlooked. But they saw me, and more than that, they wanted me. I forwarded the email to Ella. Her reply was immediate. "Hell yes, you're in. Let's burn the apron strings and make a bakery empire." I smiled, broadly, freely, for the first time in days. At dinner that night, John said, "I suppose you'll be leaving again." I looked up. "What do you mean?" "The food program, the business meetings, the festivals. "You're not here anymore, Margaret." "Not really." "I am here," I said gently. "You're just choosing not to see me." His face hardened. "You want applause for abandoning the life we built?" "No," I said. "I want respect for finally building one of my own." He stood, walked away, and just like that, the conversation was over. Except it wasn't. It was only beginning. The incubator program was life-changing. 10 women, 10 stories of starting over, starting late, starting small. Some were younger than my daughter. Others, like me, were chasing long-buried dreams. We met every Thursday in a bright studio overlooking the Hudson, shared pastries and plans, and took workshops on marketing, scaling, licensing, packaging, storytelling. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not as a wife, not as a mother, but as Margaret. Margaret with ambition, Margaret with talent, Margaret who could pitch to an investor without shaking, Margaret who could draw up her own contracts and say no when it mattered. One evening, after a workshop on brand development, a mentor pulled me aside. "Your story resonates," she said. "People want more than bread. They want to believe they can rise too." It stuck with me. I started writing little notes with every delivery. "Thank you for supporting Margaret's Table. May this loaf nourish more than your body. May it nourish your courage." People started posting the notes online. Orders doubled. A journalist from a local magazine asked to do a feature. I didn't tell John, not because I was hiding, but because I'd stopped waiting for him to care. 6 months passed. We'd become strangers under the same roof. He made his own dinners. I worked longer hours. We occasionally exchanged words, mostly neutral. Weather, bills, appointments. And then one night he dropped it. "I want a separation." I paused mid-slice, holding a loaf of cardamom raisin bread in one hand. He was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms folded. "I figured this would come," I said calmly. His face faltered. "You did?" "Yes. You've been leaving me in pieces for years. I just finally decided to stop handing you the glue." He blinked. "I still love you," I said, "but I'm not willing to go back to being invisible. Not for you. Not for anyone." We didn't yell. There were no thrown plates, no dramatic exits, just quiet honesty and relief. A week later, he moved into a flat near Jackson Heights. I helped him pack, folded his sweaters like I had for decades, and when he left, I closed the door, locked it, and leaned my back against it, not in sadness, but in something close to peace. I hired 2 part-time bakers in early spring. The kitchen rental turned into a lease. I secured funding from the incubator to build a proper commercial space. Ella came on board full-time as operations manager. Nina, my original teenage helper, now ran our delivery schedule and social media. Margaret's Table had a team, a mission, a presence. We were featured in Edible New York, then The New Yorker. And when Morning America called, I almost dropped the phone. The producer said, "You're the woman who bloomed at 60. People need to see that." I smiled. "I'll bring bread for the whole studio." They laughed. I meant it. 1 year after I launched Margaret's Table, we opened our first brick-and-mortar shop in Brooklyn. Exposed brick, copper lights, baskets of warm sourdough and spelt rolls, framed photos of my grandmother's handwritten recipes hung above the counter. A sign in the window read, "You're never too late to rise." Customers came in with their kids, their parents, their regrets and their dreams. And one Saturday afternoon, John walked through the door. He looked older, softer. He held his hat in his hands and waited in the queue like everyone else. When it was his turn, I stepped forward. He smiled. "Hi, Margaret." "Hi, John. I heard you were opening today." "I am." He looked around, eyes shining. "It's beautiful." "Thank you." A pause. "I underestimated you," he said. "You're not the only one," I replied. He nodded. "Can I buy something?" I pointed at the fresh rye. "That one just came out of the oven." He paid in cash, took his bread, then added softly, "I'm proud of you." I looked him in the eye. "I'm proud of me too." And I meant it. That evening, after we closed up, I sat alone in the back office with a slice of warm buttered brioche and a cup of chamomile tea. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who said yes to everything but herself, the one who waited for permission. She was gone now. In her place stood a woman with flour in her hair and fire in her bones. I didn't just start a business, I started a new life, and I did it at 60. Not because I had something to prove, but because I finally believed I was worth it. Thank you for listening to The Story Voice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you've got a story you think the world needs to hear, drop it in the comments. I might just tell it next. Until then, keep listening and keep feeling.